5 miles yesterday. Crazy I can even say that. God is so good. And when I was running, I was thinking, man, I'm here to do Star Search Live.
In 2022, Jelly Roll stepped onto a scale and froze. The number didn't blink. 563 pounds for years. He had avoided moments like this, ignored mirrors, laughed it off in interviews, turned pain into punchlines that made other people comfortable. Humor had always been his armor, but this time, there was nowhere to hide, no joke strong enough, no distraction loud enough. His body had become a battlefield. He was losing. Breathing felt heavier. Movement felt slower. Sleep never felt restful. Every step reminded him that survival itself was becoming work. Doctors warned him, friends worried quietly, fans shared without knowing how close he was to collapse, and deep down, he knew the truth he had been avoiding for years. If nothing changed, this story would end early. 2 years later, the world would watch him transform in ways nobody thought possible. Stadiums sold out, charts topped, weight vanished, headlines focused on numbers, pounds lost, records broken, tickets sold. But this story doesn't start with success, it starts with survival. Before the fame, before the country anthems, before millions of fans screaming his name, Jelly Roll was just Jason Bradley Defford, a kid raised in chaos on the outskirts of Nashville, trying to numb pain any way he could. His transformation wasn't just physical, it was psychological, emotional, spiritual. It was about breaking cycles that had almost killed him more than once. This is the story of a man who overdosed in prison cells, buried himself in addiction, hid trauma behind humor, and used food the same way he once used drugs, as an escape. And yet, somehow, he made it out, not clean, not perfect, but alive. This isn't a weight loss story, it's a survival story, a redemption story, and it proves one uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, the people we write off as lost causes are just fighting battles we can't see. Jelly Roll was born on December 4, 1984, in Antioch, Tennessee, a place where instability wasn't the exception, it was the norm. Antioch wasn't built for innocence, it was built for endurance. And from the beginning, life demanded toughness from him before he even understood what that meant. His mother battled severe mental illness and addiction, drifting in and out of clarity. His father stayed busy running a meat business by day and illegal gambling operations by night. Love existed in the house, but consistency didn't. Safety came and went. Emotions were unpredictable. The house was loud, chaotic, and emotionally unsafe. He was given the nickname Jelly Roll because he was a chubby kid, innocent, harmless, unaware that the name would follow him for life, eventually becoming both a shield and a symbol. Back then, it was just a joke. Later, it would become an identity the world knew. By the time most kids were learning multiplication tables, Jelly Roll was learning survival. Violence wasn't shocking, drugs weren't taboo, crime felt ordinary. He didn't grow up dreaming about careers or futures. He grew up watching people do whatever it took to get through the week. School never stood a chance, classrooms were overcrowded, underfunded, and disconnected from the reality he lived every day. By 12, he had witnessed drive-by shootings. By 14, he could list drug prices better than math formulas. Education felt abstract. The streets felt real. Music became his refuge. At 9 years old, he wrote his first rap verse. Not for fame, but to make sense of his world. Writing gave structure to chaos. Rhythm gave control where life offered none. Words became the only place he could tell the truth safely. But Antioch doesn't let go easily. By 14, Jelly Roll was arrested for the first time. It wouldn't be the last. What started as petty crime quickly became a decade-long cycle of jail cells, probation, and relapse, a loop that felt impossible to escape. Prison didn't scare Jelly Roll, it clarified him. By the time most teenagers were worried about prom or grades, he was learning how to survive concrete walls and metal doors. At 15, inside the Davidson County Juvenile Detention Center, he discovered something that would quietly save his life: creation. With no studio, no beat, and no audience, he wrote his first serious song using a stolen pencil and the back of a commissary form. Cell Block D became his classroom, silence became his producer. Writing turned into survival, while others counted. The days until release, Jelly Roll counted verses. Every line was confession. Every rhyme was accountability. He wrote about guilt, rage, abandonment, and the weight of choices he barely understood how to escape. By 17, he had written more than 100 songs, not as dreams of fame, but as proof that he still existed beneath the inmate number. In 2002, during a small talent show at Woodland Hills Youth Center, he performed an original track titled Streets Don't Love Nobody. The room went quiet. A visiting teacher recognized something rare, not Polish, but truth. With borrowed equipment and limited resources, they helped him record his first demo. It wasn't clean, it wasn't marketable, but it was honest, and honesty carried weight. By 2005, freshly out but still unstable, Jelly Roll released his first mixtape, Halfway House. Recorded in his mother's basement, he spent his final $500 pressing CDs and sold them from gas stations, barbershops, and the trunks of cars. No label, no backing, just faith and persistence. Slowly, painfully, people began to listen, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. Music gave Jelly Roll purpose, but addiction still had control. The habits were already wired deep. Marijuana and alcohol by 12, cocaine by 13, selling drugs by 15. By the time his music began reaching ears outside his neighborhood, substances were no longer recreational, they were necessary. coping mechanisms disguised as confidence, painkillers for emotional wounds he didn't know how to name. By his early 20s, chaos became routine. Cocaine, Xanax, MDMA, alcohol, mixed daily without restraint. He wasn't chasing a high anymore. He was avoiding silence. In 2006, his body finally protested. An overdose stopped his heart for nearly 2 minutes. Paramedics revived him. Doctors warned him. Family begged him. But fear alone couldn't undo years of numbness. Addiction doesn't respond to consequences. It responds to truth. And Jelly Roll wasn't ready yet. It wasn't until his final prison sentence in 2008 that something shifted. Locked away again. Stripped of momentum. He joined a 12-step program, not because he believed in it, but because he had run out of alternatives. For the first time, he didn't just write about pain. He interrogated it. He asked why. He faced patterns. He saw himself clearly, flawed, addicted, talented, and terrified of change. Then, in 2009, opportunity arrived unexpectedly. A raw freestyle uploaded to YouTube caught the attention of rapper Lil White. Their collaboration, Pop Another Pill, exploded online. Millions listened. Jelly Roll finally tasted visibility. But success didn't cure addiction. It amplified it. Fame arrived faster than healing, and temptation followed close behind. Between 2005 and 2015, Jelly Roll worked harder than most artists who ever broke through, and still felt invisible. He released 27 independent projects in a decade. Mixtapes, EPs, collaborative albums. He toured relentlessly, sleeping in vans, crashing on couches, and building a fiercely loyal underground fanbase one show at a time. His fans didn't discover him through radio or labels. They found him online, in comment sections, and at midnight Waffle House meetups that became legendary in his community. But industry acceptance never came easily. To hip-hop gatekeepers, he sounded country. To country radio, he looked to hip-hop. To executives, he was too raw, too honest, too unpredictable to package neatly. Playlists didn't know where to place him. Labels didn't know how to sell him. Programmers didn't know which audience he belonged to. Jelly Roll once described himself as musically homeless, respected by fans, ignored by systems. The rejection accumulated quietly. Years of grinding without validation. Years of watching lesser-known artists get opportunities he never did. Years of wondering if authenticity was costing him everything. By 2018, the weight nearly crushed him, burnout mixed with self-doubt. The old temptation to numb the pain crept back in. He questioned whether being himself was a mistake. Then came one conversation. Country artist Brantley Gilbert looked at him and said something simple, but devastatingly honest. Stop trying to fit in. Lean in. Stop standing down the edges. Stop chasing approval. Stop apologizing for who you are. That advice flipped the lens. Jelly Roll didn't need permission. He needed conviction. And for the first time, he chose to stand fully in his truth. Even if it meant standing alone. In 2020, the world went quiet and Jelly Roll had nowhere to hide. Touring stopped. Distractions disappeared. Isolation closed in. Then came the death of his father. Reopening wounds he had never fully healed. Grief, guilt, and fear collided at once. This time, running wasn't an option. That's when he wrote Save Me. Not as a single, not as a strategy, but as a confession. He wrote it on the same day he chose sobriety, stripped of ego, stripped of armor, no metaphors, no bravado. Just a man admitting he was tired of hurting himself and the people he loved. The lyrics didn't ask for sympathy. They asked for honesty. When he performed it acoustically, something unexpected happened. The song spread like wildfire. Millions watched, hundreds of millions, eventually. Comment sections turned into support groups. Fans shared stories of addiction, relapse, depression, and survival. People wrote that the song stopped them from using, from giving up, from disappearing. For the first time, Jelly Roll realized his vulnerability wasn't just relatable, it was rescuing people. In 2021, after years of rejection, he signed a $3 million deal with BBR Music Group, his debut major label album. Ballads of the Broken shattered expectations. Critics praised it. Fans embraced it. Radio finally listened. He had arrived. But success didn't mean peace. Sobriety didn't erase temptation, and the biggest battle of his life, the one inside his own body, was still waiting to be fought. Drugs weren't the only addiction Jelly Roll carried. When the substances left his life, the hunger didn't. Food quietly took their place. At first, it felt harmless. Comfort meals after shows. Late night binges on the road. Reward eating after long days. But addiction doesn't disappear. It shapeshifts, and before he realized it, food had become his new escape, his new numbing agent, his new way to silence emotions he didn't know how to process sober. By 2022, Jelly Roll was consuming over 10,000 calories a day. Entire pizzas disappeared without thought. Sugary snacks were hidden like contraband. Fast food became routine, not indulgence. He ate when he was stressed, when he was bored, when he was proud, when he was ashamed. Food wasn't about hunger. It was about survival. The scale kept climbing. His mobility declined. Sleep apnea worsened. Touring became physically punishing. But denial is patient, and addiction is persuasive. He told himself he was fine, that success mattered more than health, that he'd deal with it later. Then came the chest pain. A hospital visit forced a confrontation he could no longer avoid. Doctors didn't sugarcoat it. His heart was under strain. His weight was becoming life-threatening. This wasn't about image. It was about time. How much of it he had left out in January 2024. Standing on stage in front of 20,000 fans, Jelly Roll said something he'd never said out loud before. I'm tired of being the fat guy. In country music, it wasn't self-hate, it was self-awareness. The crowd cheered, but the real moment came later. Alone, quiet. The next morning, he woke up knowing one truth. This wasn't about food, it was about control. And the war had officially begun. Jelly Roll doesn't do moderation. He never has. So when he committed, he didn't flirt with change, he declared war. 3 personal trainers. For nutritionists, therapy sessions 5 times a week. Meditation, breathwork, cryotherapy. Jiu-jitsu for discipline. Hypnosis for trauma. Every tool available, he used it. His mansion stopped feeling like a home and started functioning like a performance lab. Gyms replaced luxury rooms, ice baths replaced indulgence. His tour bus transformed into a mobile training facility. Workouts happened before shows. After shows, between sound checks, there were no off days, only adjusted. Intensity. This wasn't vanity. It was accountability. And he didn't hide the process. He filmed the sweat, the setbacks, the moments he wanted to quit, the tears that came when old habits screamed for relief. By June 2024, the numbers stunned everyone to 150 pounds gone. But what shocked people more was how open he was about it. He didn't pretend it was easy. He didn't sell shortcuts. He talked about cravings, about shame, about days when progress stalled and discipline felt unbearable. Millions followed them. Journey online, not because it was inspiring, but because it was honest. Fans began walking, lifting, choosing differently. Hundreds of thousands joined what became a movement, not a challenge. Jelly Roll wasn't chasing a body, he was reclaiming agency for the first time in his life. Obsession wasn't destroying him, it was saving him, and the transformation was far from over. Weight loss changed Jelly Roll's body, sobriety saved his life. But therapy changed everything else for the first time. He stopped treating addiction as the enemy and started asking a harder question. What was he running from in the first place? In therapy, the layers peeled back slowly. Childhood instability, emotional neglect, growing up in chaos without safety, structure, or reassurance. Years of watching adults self-destruct while learning that survival meant silence, prison trauma, overdose memories, grief he never processed, especially the loss of his father. Food hadn't been the problem. Drugs hadn't been the root. Food was comfort when no one else was. Drugs were numbness when emotions felt unbearable. Humor was armor. Music was confession. Once he understood that, everything shifted. Instead of punishing himself for cravings, he examined them. Instead of running from emotional triggers, he sat with them, uncomfortable, shaking, exposed. Therapy sessions weren't inspirational. They were brutal, honest, draining. Some days he left feeling lighter. Other days he left feeling broken open. But something remarkable happened. Sobriety stopped feeling like a daily battle and started feeling like a foundation. Weight loss stabilized because it wasn't fueled by self-hate anymore. It was fueled by self-respect. Emotional regulation replaced emotional avoidance. Peace, real peace, became possible. Not happiness, not perfection, peace. For the first time in his life, Jelly Roll wasn't surviving moment to moment. He was healing root to branch. Mind, body, and spirit finally aligned. Jelly Roll didn't just lose weight. He didn't just get sober. He redefined redemption, a former inmate, a former addict. A man society labeled disposable before he turned 18. Now filling arenas, topping charts, standing on stages where people cry, not because he's perfect, but because he's real. His music doesn't sell fantasy. It tells the truth. Songs about relapse, about shame, about trying again after failing publicly. And that's why people listen, because his story proves something uncomfortable. Recovery isn't linear. It doesn't follow timelines. It doesn't come with a clean image or a polished ending. It's messy, repetitive, relentless. Jelly Roll didn't become a role model by doing everything right. He became one by telling the truth about doing things wrong and choosing to keep going anyway. He still struggles. He still works daily at his health. He still attends therapy. He still guards his sobriety like his life depends on it. Because it does. And honesty saves lives. Fans don't see him as a success story. They see him as proof that people aren't lost cousins. Proof that addiction doesn't erase worth. Proof that healing is possible, even late, even messy, even imperfect. Jelly Roll didn't become flawless. He became accountable. He became present. He became honest. In a world addicted to fake perfection, that honesty is his greatest legacy.